We get a lot of questions about 401ks, and we know that they can be pretty tricky to navigate. So today we're going to try to tackle some of the top FAQs as it relates to 401ks and try to get really a comprehensive breakdown of what they are, how to use them, some strategies and all that. We'll do that with Lee Perkins coming up next.
Welcome to the My Retirement Clarity Podcast, where our goal is simple, to help you close the gap between what you know and what you implement. The team at JL Perkins Wealth Management does this by helping good people make great decisions so they can enjoy an amazing retirement. And now, here's your host and financial advisor, Lee Perkins.
Well, hello, welcome into My Retirement Clarity. Glad to have you on the podcast once again. I am Ben George with Lee Perkins, owner and financial advisor at JL Perkins Wealth Management in Macon, Georgia. Lee, the 401k, it's a tool that I know most people use to save for retirement. So I'm sure it's something you're talking about consistently with people you work with.
It really is. Not even with, not just with people that I work with, but just people that I see out in the community. People all the time are asking me a lot of similar questions. How much do I need to save? How much does somebody need to retire? A whole bunch of different things. So I was like, you know what? Why don't we just do a show and answer some of the questions that I get all the time. I thought that would be helpful for the audience. So should be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We have 10 different questions I'm going to throw your way today, Lee. So if you have any follow-ups to these questions, or maybe there's a situation with your 401k that you want a little more clarity on, you can always get in touch at 478-254-3550 or online, myretirementclarity.com. The best way also to schedule a meeting if you just want to get right to it and talk with Lee directly, just go to talkwithjlp.com. Again, talkwithjlp.com. All right, Lee, I'm just going to jump into these. We got a number to run through, and I think we'll start with this one. I know some companies do offer programs where they can actually provide a little bit of guidance for your 401k. So if your company offers that, where maybe you can get advice on your 401k for a low fee, is that a good idea?
All right, so I'm going to try to answer these questions without saying on all of them, it depends, because that's usually the answer to everything. But for this one, it really does depend. It depends on what that advice is. And I'm not somebody I'm not going to make every decision based on what something costs, how cheap it is or how expensive it is. So if you have that option in your 401k, it really just depends on what the value is that you're getting for that fee. So I would suggest that you talk with somebody who you work with that is using it and get their opinion on what the value is. If it's just they're telling you how to allocate the funds, I don't know. There could be some value in there, of course, but that's just a little bit of investment advice, allocation, and they're probably just going to do that based on your age. So I'm not sure that would be worth it. But if they're able to help you with some other things that might be pressing in your world, like, hey, what if I retire at 58 versus 62? When should I claim Social Security? If they can answer those kind of questions, I would say it might be worth paying a fee for that.
Yeah, most of the time they aren't, though, are they? They're just kind of giving you some very high-level guidance.
Yeah, because generally speaking, they don't know you, they don't know your situation, and that's why most of the time we tell people that you should partner with a financial advisor that can add value and who knows about your situation, who knows your kids and their names and what they're going to do and all those kind of things. You just want somebody that's a little more in the know than somebody on the other end of an 800 number.
Yeah. All right. That's our first question. How about this one, Lee? Should I contribute as much as I can to my 401k, or if I do have a company that provides a match, do I just need to contribute enough to get that match?
So this is a good one because I just had this conversation with a new employee here. They just became eligible for the 401k that we offer. And what I told her, and she's younger, I said, you need to at least contribute enough to get the match because you are getting 100% match on that first 5%. So it's free money. I can't promise her 100% return on her money, but I can promise her 100% return on that first 5%. So do enough to get the match. And Ben, you know this because you talk to advisors all over the country. we see people all the time who aren't contributing enough. They're contributing so little, they're not getting the full company match. So if you don't do anything, just make sure you do enough to get the match. Outside of that, I still want you to save money. Now, do I want you to put it in your 401k? Kind of depends on your situation, what your taxes are like, how soon you're gonna retire. If you're somebody who's young, like I advised this person that I was speaking with, the new employee here, that she should put everything in the 401k Roth component.
Okay.
Because she's making as little money now as she's ever going to make. So go ahead and pay the taxes now. Get that money in a Roth IRA and let that grow tax-free. And then, she's 24 or 25. Boy, when she's 55, she's going to have options. If she continues to do that, she'll have options that most people don't have because, just putting that time in, it's as much about how long you put money in as it is to how much you put in. But yes, save as much money as you can, but I'm a big fan of a Roth IRA and a Roth 401k.
Yeah, it's almost like a two-part question, right? It's, if you're asking about how much should you be saving, well, the answer is probably going to be as much as you can, right? But if it's, is 401k my best investment option, well, that's a different discussion, as you point out. Maybe a Roth makes more sense. So kind of a couple of different ways to approach that.
Yeah, and I've said this on the show before, man. I've never had anybody tell me, you know what, Lee, I've saved too much money. I wish I wouldn't have saved it. Now I meet people all the time that have more than they're ever going to spend, but I don't have anybody who regrets saving as much as they did. But we meet people all the time that are like, man, I sure wish I would have put more away.
Yeah, no question. You'll never regret saving money, that's for sure. All right, third question here, Lee. I know inside of the 401k, there are some, not a ton of investment options, not as much you'd have in some other accounts. But one of the common ways that people often start contributing to that 401k is by the target date funds. Do you think people should I use these target date funds? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, so target date funds have been around for several years now, and I think they do serve a purpose. They serve a purpose for people who just don't have a clue at all how they should invest. Because I've met with people that have been working somewhere for 20 years and they still have everything sitting in a fixed account. That's a terrible idea. They've given up so much potential return, not potential return. They've given up. Compliance doesn't like us to use the word absolute or anything like that, but those people absolutely gave up some returns by sitting in a fixed account for that long. So the target date fund really makes it easy because all you have to do is just pick a date in the future that lines up with either when you're going to retire or how long you think it's going to be before you need the money. So therein lies a little bit of the confusion for the average person. Do I pick the target date based on when I'm going to retire, or do I pick it based on when I think I'm going to need the money? My opinion is you should do it based on when you need the money, not necessarily when you're going to retire, because when you retire, you don't just automatically become an old lady or become an old man and put your money in cash. Your money still needs to work for you. So, yeah, a target date, even though we don't use them here at our office for our clients, I just think there are way better options out there. But sometimes it can be a really good option for people who have a 401k and just don't know. They don't know. It's better than nothing,
Yeah, no question. All right, we're talking about some of the top 401k frequently asked questions in 2024. Is taking a 401k loan always a bad idea, Lee?
Well, the word always changes my answer there. It's not always a bad idea. I'd probably say most of the time it's a bad idea, because when I hear what people take 401k loans for, I'm like, man, what are you doing? In my experience, what happens is somebody takes a 401k loan out and they're buying stuff, or they're trying to bail themselves out of a situation that they created with a bad decision. I try to tell people, don't take a 401k loan unless it is your absolute last result. Now, if it's a medical situation with your kid and you've got no other choice, or with your spouse, take the 401k, take care of your family first. But don't take a 401k loan to take a trip. I know somebody who they travel all the time, and for years we're like, how in the world are they doing that? How are they affording it? And they would always say, oh, we're just taking it out of our savings. Well, after about 7 years of this, I kind of dug a little bit deeper, that savings was their 401k account. They were taking money out of their 401k. They were not 59 and a half, so it wasn't a distribution, a normal distribution. They were paying taxes and a 10% penalty. And now their 401k is stunted beyond repair. I mean, they can add money to it, but they're not able to add more money to catch up just because those years have been lost. And so, yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of a 401k loan unless it's a last result.
Okay, good to know. Again, if you ever come across that, always want to sit down with a financial professional, see what your options are. You might have other options, even if you don't feel like you do. But again, that 401k loan can really be a detriment for your financial future potentially. So you want to be careful there. All right, about halfway through here. When should I take money out of my 401k and then roll it over into an IRA? I know these rollovers have been a popular kind of strategy here recently.
Yeah, and of course, I'm a fan of a rollover because that's, when we meet with people, if it makes sense and we can add value, yes, I want somebody to take the money out of their 401k, roll it directly over into an IRA, and that's how they become a client of ours. That's, of course, how we get paid, is to manage assets. But don't roll your 401k over to me just because I can get paid. Roll your 401k over to me so you can start getting professional advice from our firm or from another firm for that matter. Once the money's in an IRA, you simply have more control over your money. Your investment choices are unlimited. Inside that 401k, you've got the menu of options that are available from whoever is holding that 401k, but you also have to play by the rules of whoever the plan administrator is, and they can restrict access to your money. But yeah, I'm a big fan of a rollover. Now there's a couple different ways to do it. If you're under 59 and a half, generally speaking, the money has to stay in the 401k. Now I'm talking about if you're still working. Let me back up here. If you're still working and you're under 59 and a half, most of the time that money has to stay there until you're 59 and a half. Then you can take it out and put it in an IRA, still contribute to your 401k, still get a match. There are a couple of companies that will let you do that before age 59 and a half, but there's very, very few of them, but that might be an option. So if it's something that you're interested in, you can check with your benefits folks at your office and they can let you know, or you can call our office and I can tell you, because we know a lot of the information about companies that are here in Georgia. But yeah, again, once you roll it over to an IRA, you can invest in whatever you want to, and you got pretty much I wouldn't say unlimited access. I guess really you do, unless a product that you purchase or however you set your money up could have some restriction to it. But yeah, I love an IRA because then it gets you the ability to start moving money into a Roth IRA. And that's where you can really move the needle, and doing that sooner rather than later a lot of times does make sense for people. Hey folks, Lee Perkins here. I wanted to tell you about our brand new book called Next Phase, How to Retire in a Year or Less Without Regrets. It's all about helping you prepare for the next phase of your life, whatever that looks like for you. So, if you're ready to make the most of your next phase, or if you're already retired and aren't sure you're doing all you can to get the most out of your retirement, then you'll want a copy of this book. All you have to do is text Next Phase to 478-475-2050, and we'll send you a copy right away. You can also access additional resources and register for one of our upcoming workshops at our website, www.myretirementclarity.com. Thanks for listening. Now back to the show.
I know taxes we've kind of touched on a little bit so far, but the question I know comes up a lot, just what are my tax implications when I'm contributing to a 401k, and then how does that affect my take-home pay?
Yeah, so if you're going to put money into your 401k, into a traditional 401k, I'm not talking about a Roth 401k, put it into the traditional 401k, your taxable income is going to be decreased. So if you make $10,000 a month, say you make $120,000 a year, and you put $20,000 into your 401k, that $20,000 is going to come off of your 120, and now your income was only $100,000. So you're deferring that taxes. All right. So of course, how does it affect your take home pay? Well, you just won't get as much coming to you because you have that going into your 401k. So, yeah, again, this kind of goes back to the first or second question you asked me: how much should I contribute? Don't contribute so much that you can't afford to live week to week or month to month. Saving for retirement is a sacrifice, and so we have to sacrifice today for the future. I get that. But I don't want you to put so much into your 401k that you don't enjoy life right now. If you're just saving for tomorrow, and you're not enjoying today, that's not a good strategy there. There's a happy medium, and you got to do what's best for you.
Absolutely. And if you have questions about that and kind of the best approach for you, talkwithjlp.com. Easiest way to schedule a meeting. You'll find Lee's calendar there. You can find a time that works for you and go ahead and pop your name in there and go ahead and lock that up. But I know a lot of these things you'll want more clarity on, or at least be able to get answers that relate to your specific situation. Lee, what about this one? How should I adjust my 401k investments as I get closer to retirement?
Well, generally speaking, and everybody knows this is not earth-shattering news here. Generally speaking, as you get closer to retirement, you probably should consider backing off the risk just a little bit. But that's not a blanket statement for everybody. Everybody doesn't need to do that. I think for the most part, when I meet with somebody that's brand new and they come in and I ask them how they're invested in their 401k, most of the times people really don't know. They might say, well, I'm moderate, just because moderate is a word that people throw around all the time. It means different things to different people. But I think you need to, as you're getting closer to retirement, you need to pay more attention to what you're actually invested in and have a good idea of how much risk you actually have. And if you're comfortable with that same amount of risk going into retirement, you can certainly keep the same level of risk. Now, again, I would tell you to roll your 401k into an IRA when you retire, or even before you retire, once you reach 59 and a half, because you can then generally, most of the time, you can closer match your actual risk tolerance outside in an IRA than you can inside of a 401k. Because in a 401k, most of the time, they're all mutual funds. They've got really cool sounding names, but most of the time, people don't really know what's inside the mutual funds. And they might say, all right, well, this is the, I Love America fund, so I'm going to put all their money in there. But you don't really know. You don't really know what it is. And I had this conversation with somebody over this weekend, and something that we're sort of working on. Ben, do you know how most people choose the investments in their 401k? You ever given that thought?
Just by name?
Most of the time, people will look at it. They see the names. The names don't mean anything because they don't live in that world. They're going over to the column and looking at the returns.
Okay, yeah.
All right, sense. So this one did 18% last year.
Yeah.
All right, it's got a 3-year average. Yep. So that's what that is what not 9 out of 10 people do, probably 98 out of 100. That's how they're selecting their investments out of a 401k. So yeah, you need to probably be a little bit more, do that with a little bit more intentionality.
What is the disclaimer we always hear? Past returns are not indicative of future returns. That applies there, yep. Right? Yeah.
It absolutely does.
Very good. Well, you definitely want to be proactive with those investments, especially as you are getting closer to retirement. What happens if you change jobs, Lee? What happens to your 401k?
So nothing happens to the 401k. I'll tell you, lots of times, Ben, people forget about their 401k. Now, I know if you're working somewhere and you got $500,000 in your 401k and you've been working for 30 years and you change jobs, you're not forgetting that 401k. I can't tell you how many times I meet with somebody that worked for somewhere for a year and a half, but that was 6 jobs ago, and they're like, I think I have some money, but I'm not sure. They get forgotten all the time. So most of the times they're just going to sit there, and then you'll get correspondence. Maybe you'll get something in the mail, or maybe you've switched to electronic communications, and then you forget that email, or it goes to junk, and then all of a sudden, there's an account that you don't know about. So nothing happens to the account. So that's why I think it's very important for you to stay proactive and know where your money is. If I meet somebody that's got 4 or 5 old 401ks, I'm like, man, let's make your life simpler. Let's combine all those 401ks, roll them into one IRA so you get one statement. Make your life easier, and lots of times people really appreciate that. I met somebody before, they had 17 different accounts.
Wow.
Now they had 6 different 401ks, so we were able to combine those and put it into one 401k. And people do ask me all the time, they're like, well, should I take an old 401k, put it in my new 401k? You can certainly do that. I don't recommend it. Again, I would rather you put that money in an IRA. There's only a few times and few situations where I would say it might make sense to put it in your existing 401k, but for the most part, yeah, when you change a job, you need to take that money with you.
Okay. All right. For those that feel like they maybe have fallen behind a little bit, Lee, in terms of saving for retirement, can I make catch-up contributions to the 401k? And if you can, how much and when? Yeah,
this is something people do ask me, but you can Google this at any time. That same question, you just Google it and it'll give you the number. So if you're under the age of 50 for this year in 2024, you can put $23,000 into a 401k. If you're over 50, they let you put in an additional $7,500, so you can actually do $30,500. Now this is just a traditional 401k. There's some variances to a 401k for highly compensated folks or maybe that have a different component to the 401k where you can put money in there. But for 9 out of 10 people or 19 out of 20 people, those are those numbers. Now, those catch-up contributions, let me circle back to something that we talked about a little bit earlier. The Roth 401k, if you're putting money in a Roth 401k, again, Roth 401k and regular 401k, the contribution limits are the same. But if you're putting your money into a Roth 401k, your company match is going into the traditional side of the 401k. So they're not going to give you tax-free money. You're going to have to pay taxes on that. But your money can go into the Roth. Company match goes into the traditional, but the contribution limits are exactly the same.
All right, very good. A couple more FAQs here to run through before we close out today's episode. How does the vesting work within a 401k, and what do you need to know about your plan schedule?
Yeah, so usually with a company, you are 100% vested in your contributions. There can be a vesting schedule on the company match, and that's just something that you need to talk with your benefits folks at your office about, because I have seen various variations on that, different variations on that, and so it really just kind of depends. Some folks want you to be there a year before you're vested in the match. Some people say you got to be there, maybe 2 years or 3 years. They may have their own vesting schedule, but I would say for the most part, most of the companies that we see, you're vested in your contributions as well as the match pretty soon.
All right, very good. Let's close out with one last question here for Lee. What are the risks and the benefits of including company stock in your 401k?
That's a good question. I don't get that question very, very much, but the times that I've seen it right from the get-go, the one that jumps out at you is if you're putting all of your money in company stock in your 401k, I would not recommend that, because your income is dependent on that company and your 401k is now 100% dependent on that company. If something goes wrong, you're subjecting yourself to probably too much risk. I'm okay if you want to put some money in your company stock inside your 401k. There are companies that will actually give you some of their stock as a part of your contribution plan. But if that's not the case and you just have the option to put money in your company stock, I'm fine with that. If you want to put, I probably wouldn't put more than 25% of my contributions into a company stock, whatever, depending on whatever company that is. If it's a good company or a bad company, I would adjust that. But I thought about this. What are the risks of this? Here's another risk I would tell you, Ben, is people sometimes will fall in love with a stock. Yeah. If somebody falls in love with a stock, you're gonna make poor decisions. And I'm not saying that every stock is a guy with tattoos that's a drummer in a band, and you're falling in love with him, and it's going to turn out bad. But that can happen, and sometimes you're blind. You become blind to that, and can lead you to make some poor decisions. So as long as you're willing to part with the stock when it makes sense, and you're not married to that stock. Because when somebody's married to a stock, man, they don't, the reality, news, the real things, the real world just sort of goes out the window, and they're not going to get rid of that stock, come hell or high water, and that could be to their detriment many, many times. Now, there's some great company stocks out there, great companies, and people have gotten rich with one company. But yeah, once you're retired, probably should start divesting of that, because you just got a lot of risk in that one company.
All right. So 10, I think maybe a bonus question thrown in there as well. 401k, frequently asked questions. I know there's probably more on your mind potentially, but hopefully this kind of gives you a pretty good overview of 401k and some of the most pressing questions or some of the things most people are curious about here in 2024. But again, if you want to really dig in and dial into your situation specifically, always best to talk with a financial professional like Lee Perkins at JL Perkins Wealth Management. The best way to do that is by scheduling a meeting at talkwithjlp.com. Again, talkwithjlp.com. Also, feel free to give them a call at 478-254-3550. Lee, any final thoughts on 401ks before we get out of here?
No, I think we didn't cover everything on 401ks, but I think we hit a lot of the high points. But again, like Ben just said, if you've got a specific question about your company 401k, feel free to reach out and give us a call, and I'll do my best to answer your question, and hopefully put you on a better pathway towards long-term success.
Yeah, that is the goal. And we have a couple of guests coming up on future episodes of the podcast, so please subscribe to that. Lee, do you want to tease those at all, or do you want to just kind of let people figure it out?
So here's how I'll tease it. Coming up, and these will probably post sometime. When are these going to post, Ben? These are going to be in August?
Yeah, in August.
Yeah, so one of them is going to be another financial advisor. I won't say his name right now, but he is a tax guru. I'm actually going to a tax training of his. I've been to it before. I'm going again. A lot of just high-level tax information that I'm going to learn from him. He's been doing it for years and years. So I'm having him on the podcast. He's agreed to come on, and he'll share some of the strategies that he uses, that he's taught me, that we use with our clients. And then the second one, it's going to be somebody people would want to hear from in this area. How's that? So if you live in the middle Georgia area, you will know who this person is, and that's going to be a good one. But I won't drop that name just yet.
I love it. So if you want to get those when they come out, please hit subscribe on the podcast wherever you listen. We appreciate that support. And Lee, we always are grateful for your time as well here on the show. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, take care, Ben. See ya. Hey there, Lee Perkins here. If you're like a lot of folks, you've been listening to this podcast for a long time now. But I've got an important question for you. Have you implemented any of the ideas that we've discussed on the show? If you haven't, what are you waiting on? You know you're not getting any younger. So here's my challenge. Don't just consume the content. Our number one goal for this podcast is to help you close the gap between what you know and what you implement. So if you're ready to implement, take that first step today and visit www.talkwithjlp.com and schedule a 15-minute phone call with one of our advisors, and we'll help you close the gap between what you know and what you implement so you can enjoy the next phase of your life. Now is your time. Don't procrastinate any longer.
Investment advisory services are offered by JL Perkins Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor and insurance agency. Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice. Always consult with a qualified tax, legal, or investment professional before taking any action.